Alright, so we left off, not in here. Set my project to my Moon 2 folder. Open up my file, Alien03. There he is. And turning off all the other stuff that I have. And then I'm going to turn my grid back on. Somehow I turned it off. There it is. Okay, so now we're going to do a couple spaceships, and the two spaceships that we're going to do are NURBS-based spaceships. And they're not too fancy. But they do go over a lot of the same stuff that we did before, so it shouldn't be anything that's too crazy difficult. So I'm going to create a NURB cylinder. I'm rotating it. And then I'm just going to reshape it. So I'm just flattening this out, stretching this out. And I'm creating the body of the ship. Okay. We're going to create two of them. One's going to be more of like this kind of shape, this elongated shape with some rocket thrusters. And the other one's just going to be more of like a generic kind of spaceship, you know, something like those, but not as fancy. Okay. And with NURBS, you know, we can get fancy with it. It's just going to take time. Just take some playing around. So let's take our spans up to, let's see, 5 here. And our sections up to, let's say, 12. Should be good. Okay, and I want to go into my my front view here, or side view. I want to see this area. I'm going to grab the control vertex. I'm going to grab these guys and these guys, and I'm going to scale them out. And I'm going to grab these guys and scale these out. Oops, too many. There we go. So it just creates more of like this like flattened oval shape. That's what I want. Okay, then I can go in the top view and then just kind of shape this thing into spaceship looking type thing. Let's taper this side down. Oops. There we go. So I'm just scaling this kind of, you know, arbitrarily, just kind of getting this spaceship shape like that. Okay. Now I'm going to have to cap this guy off here, and I'm going to have to cap that guy off there. That's fine. It's no big deal. I'm going to add a bubble on top, and we'll add some wings on this thing and a little thruster area. I'm going to go to Control Vertex, and I'm going to grab... I want to grab this, but I don't want to grab these ones. Okay. So you can, however you want to grab those. I just want to grab these points here and just lift this up. Okay, that way it gives a little bit more of a design flair to it. I'll even do the same thing on the bottom. Just kind of pull it down a little bit, not much, just a little bit. Okay, so we've essentially created just a really messed up duck beak. That's what that looks like. Okay. So I'm going to take a create NURBS plane. That's what I want. All the tools from this point out are going to be NURBS unless I specifically say grab polygons. And if I do say that, most likely I'll be joking or accidentally grabbing the wrong one. So I'm moving this to here. I'm going to grab my patches, not that way, this way. And I'm adding more divisions this way so that I can go into my top view, go to Control Vertex, and just give this a little bit of rounding. Okay, I'm grabbing buddies. This guy doesn't have a buddy, he's all alone. But this guy, his buddy's right on the other side, so grab him. And then this dude and that dude are buddies. And then they're perfect where they are. They've been here before, they know exactly what to do. Alright, so this just gives us a little bit of rounding in here. Okay, and I can duplicate this shape, pull it to the back, flip it around, reverse it. There we go. Maybe flatten it a little bit. The backs on these planes are not very aerodynamic, so they don't usually go in reverse. But the front, I think it needs to be. Also, we can grab the hull, this hull on top. Same thing as vertices, remember, I can just grab this and just taper this a little bit. There we go. Okay. So now I have these kind of capping areas. I'm just going to click on this one, click on that one, so I have those two. Edit NURBS, surface fillet, circular fillet, slash fillet, slash fillet of fish. Reset, we want to make sure we do create curves on surface. And then as far as reversing, just like before, who knows? So start with the low radius, hit apply, totally wrong, hit undo. Reverse one of them, hit apply, totally wrong, hit undo. Click this, apply. Perfect, that's exactly what we want. Okay, so it's on the inside, so I can cut this, and we're good. I'm not going to trim it yet, I want to do the back side first. So hit apply. Whew, perfect. Okay, but make sure when you look at this, you get into these corners, you can see that my fillet of fish, my fillet, is broke. So I'm going to hit undo. I'm going to lower this to 0.05. Hit apply again, and now it's fixed. Okay, it's just too tight in that area. Yours may not have been too tight. Yours may have been perfect. Close. Okay, so now I can go to Edit NURBS. I can go to Trim Tool. And no one's going to stop me. So I'm just trimming off all these pieces. Hey, that's what happens when you hit the wrong button. Edit NURBS, Trim Tool. Trim this, yes. Trim this, yes. So I said no one's going to stop me, and Maya tried to stop me. You have to be very careful what you say around here. Okay, so there's our spaceship there. Looks pretty stupid. Let's go and create another cylinder. Oops. So I created a polygon cylinder. I went the wrong one. NURB cylinder. Rotate it 90 degrees. Notice how these are 90. It's exactly 90. You rotated it 88. It's going to look really stupid. Okay, there's our wings. So again, we want to shape these like wings, just like we shaped this like the main compartment. Okay. Let's put these back here. That's where the wings should be. I want to make sure that they're not going too far, like this is like too far underneath. So I'm just going to pull it up a little bit. I also want to shape them just like I did the other one. So 12 sections. Let's say 6 spans. 6 spans is sufficient. I like to have one in the middle and then however many on the outside. The more I have, the more I can shape. Alright, so now let's go to the top view. Oops, sorry, the front view first. Where I can go to Control Vertex and grab these guys. I don't know which ones I grab first, but these guys have to be scaled out in the red. And these guys have to be scaled out in the red, which is now yellow. That's good. I'm also going to go to Control Vertex. Let me go back to the front view here. And because these are wings, I'm just going to give them a little bit of aerodynamics. So I'm just kind of manually just grabbing these points and moving them just to kind of shape them into what I think their aerodynamicness should be. Okay. You're flying through space. You want to make sure that your plane is like smooth. Okay, the wings are just too chunky here. So let's scale these down. There we go. So now we have this nice little profile here. Okay, something like that. Then I can go on the top view. Oops. Go to my Control Vertex and grab the buddies like that. I'm going to scale these down. I don't even know if I want to do this. I think I might just want to cut them. Yeah, that's going to look funny. I'm just going to hit undo. And I'm just going to cut these how I want them to be shaped. So I'm going to create another cylinder. Grab the right one that time. I'm going to scale it up. Okay, notice how big this one is compared to the other one. I can shrink it this way. I just want to make sure it covers the wings. That's the important part. Okay. And go to the top view. And you can see how this is just going to clip the wing right here. I'm just going to adjust this I'm going to pull it back some like this. So now my wings are going to be more of like this rounded shape right here. Imagine this area is cut off. Imagine this area is no longer existing. This is going to be my cut line with a nice little fillet. Okay, so let's try that and just see what it looks like. So we click and click. Notice how we only have two shapes. So it might be a little bit tricky. We'll find out. Edit NURBS, surface fillet, circular fillet. And whatever options were here, who cares? Let's just hit apply. There we go. I'm going to save before Maya crashes. And realize that that's perfect where I want it, except you can see that this is way too big and it's cutting it off. This is way too big and it's cutting it off. But luckily, it worked perfectly that I didn't need to change anything ridiculous on it. So let's try 0.01, apply. Let's come into those corners that we're having trouble. Still a little trouble, hit undo. We'll cut it in half, 0.005. I think we're good there. And we're probably going to be good back here because this is a bigger area. All right, now let's check the other side. Looks good. Okay, cool. So now we can go in here and just go to our trim tool. And what I want to keep, I want to make sure I keep this side, and I spin over here, and I keep that side. Okay, I don't want to keep this other side. Hit Enter or Y. Okay, what do I want to keep here? That piece and that piece. Okay, there we go. Nothing's going to stop this baby flying through outer space. All right, let's go to Create NURBS Sphere. Okay, this is where the pilot's going to sit. So we want to shape this into, you know, something kind of cool and neat, like that. Perfect. Maybe in the top view, just kind of reshape this a little bit. Let's go to our side view here. Again, it's all about aerodynamics. If you don't have a full understanding of aerodynamics at this stage, I don't think you're ever going to get it. That's a joke. I think everyone gets the concept of what we're trying to do. Just nice and smooth stuff going into it. There we go. That looks kind of neat. Okay. Imagine this baby in Star Wars. So we're going to grab these two things. We're going to go to Edit NURBS. Another fillet. And a little bit bigger, -0.1. Notice how I didn't use the box this time. There we go. -0.02 is what I wanted to be. Okay, back to the trim tool. And actually, if you think about it, I hate to ask you to think about it. If you actually look at it, that's actually the wrong way. So it's like ramping up into it, and it should be like ramping down. Kind of like that, but not like that. Like that. That's how it should be. Positives, not negatives. Okay, so now let's go a little bit higher. 0.1. There we go. Okay. I have a little weird line right here in the middle, so I'm just going to lower this a little bit more. There we go, that's better. Alright, so now if I go to hide my curves, just so you can see something here. Show NURBS curves. If you look at that, you don't need to trim this because it's all on the outside. Okay? Here we had to trim because we didn't want those extra pieces hanging off. Here, everything's already covered, so let's just leave it there. So that's cool. So now let's go and create a I want to create a thruster. I don't want to use a cylinder though. I'm going to go to CV curve tool. I'm going to go to the front view. And I'm just going to go to this blank area, but this middle line here is where I want to start my stuff at. I'm going to hold down X, click my first point on the middle line. Make sure I have show curves back on. I'm going to hold down Shift and click my next point directly in line with that one. Then I'm just going to freestyle the shape of this thruster. Okay, so I'm just holding Shift just to kind of constrain the straight area, and then constrain some of these lines here, and then come back over. Now I'm going to hold Shift, X, and click. Notice how I have at the start and the end 2 points perfectly in line. Hit Enter, and there it is. There's my thruster. So now I can just go to Surfaces and say Revolve. Okay, now it might go in the wrong direction, which is what it did on mine. So I'm just going to come over here to my axis, turn X off, turn Y on. And there it is. There's my thruster right here. Perfect. So I can delete the history. I can center pivot him, move him up, rotate him. And obviously it's huge, so we just scale it down. Okay, I don't want it to intersect too much. So like that would work. That looks cool. Okay, before I do anything else, just kind of visualizing, what would this look like. Okay, obviously we can do different kinds of thrusters. I'm just going to duplicate this so we can move it around to other areas. I could have like one of these back thruster deals, like that. Okay, or I can do one of these top thruster things like that, whatever. I'm going to go for the two sides. I think that's going to be a cool way to go. That will earn me some popularity points. So, duplicate. I need to pop it over to this side here. So if I go to my Z, I should be able to just negative scale, or negative that Z, and push it over there, because I modeled it right here at the origin. If you didn't do that, and you did a bad thing, then you may have to duplicate group to put the pivot there, and then negative scale it in the Z direction. Click the right one. There we go. Cool. Okay. So there's these two thrusters here. I could go into further detail modeling actual thrusters here, but we're not going to see anything really that close. So again, let's throw some bevels on these guys, or some fillets. I call them bevels, essentially that's what they are. Negative 0.1, let's see. Nope, we're nowhere near where we need to be. So let's take this and make this positive 0.1. There we go. So negative 0.02 and 0.02. There we go. So now they just look like they're welded, at least to that. Okay. So same thing on this side. Fillets. Positive, this one will be negative. Oops, that one's both positive. It's odd. Whatever. Whatever works, works. There we go. And again, we don't need to actually do any trimming on these because they're touching, they're hiding. If we were showing the inside of this, then we'd say, okay, well this thing is obviously sticking out, we need to get rid of that, then we would get rid of that, but we're not seeing it. Okay, so I'm going to grab everything on this ship, it's essentially done. I'm going to delete the history. I'm going to show surfaces, NURB surfaces off. Oops, no, maybe not. Show NURB surfaces on. I just want to grab all these curves, so I'm going to turn surface selection off, then grab the curves, then we'll make a curves layer. It's always good to hide your curves on a layer, and then turn them off. There we go. Okay, so there's our first spaceship here. Okay, I probably could have maybe tapered this front end a little bit more, but whatever. there's always room to play and tweak and do the other stuff. And that took me, if you look at my video time here, 20 minutes to do that. So 20 more minutes, we can make a new one. All right, so now this is not going to be just this spaceship here, okay? We're going to do some fancier stuff. But first, let's go through and grab all our NURBS items. And I have a camera stuck in here somehow, so I'm just going to control-click the camera off. Control-G to group it, and call it NURBS Ship 1. Okay. And we can color this thing however we want to color it. Oops, surface selection back on. This thing, I wouldn't make it transparent. Okay, if I did want to make it transparent, I'd probably go with Amiya. Call this NURBS Ship Glass. And then I would make it like this frosted glass that they have in here. Frosted glass. It's under the frosted glass. Okay, so then I would have this, and there'd just give me a frosted look to it, so I wouldn't be able to see in there, but you got to be careful, because if you do see something like that, it can just look funny, right? So let's say I started off with this glazed ceramic color, and drop a gamma on this. Okay, and I can just drag on the value, just click the map button, and add a ramp. Hit 6 so I can see it. Okay, now this ramp is going, you can see it's kind of going like clockwise. So I change it to a U ramp, it'll go the other way. So now I can just go into a ramp as a gradient, right, basically. Go into the green area, and I can just make this like silvery, it's kind of a greenish tint, but whatever. And then go into here, and then take that same color and maybe just darken it. There we go. So I'll get a little bit of a gradient on there. And then for the rest of the ship, make sure I grab all the other pieces here. I can assign a new Mia. NURBS Ship Main. Click the map button next to color. Grab a file. And I can go find another file, just kind of like a metal-y texture that I can use. I actually grab this one to use on there. Okay. Now it's not going to look good up close, obviously, because it has all these lines in it. But I can go to the place 2D texture and I can change my repeats, just like we did before. Let's say 5 and 5. Let's say 10 and 30. I can also turn mirroring on. Now what mirroring is going to do is it's going to take my texture and kind of offset it. So if I don't have it on, it's a little bit more obvious where my stuff is. If I do have it on, you can see we get these like mirrors of it. Okay, maybe I'll make these things a different color also. Thrusters. And we'll click here, I'll click Maya, Gamma Correct. Remember, it's under Utilities. I can't tell you everything every single time, otherwise these videos would be 7 hours long and not 6 hours long like they normally are. And again, we can see where the thrusters, the ramp is going, so I'm just going to make this a U ramp. Goes that way. And then I can go to the blue. I don't need to gamma crack these because I've already gamma cracked this ramp shader. There we go. Okay, so that's cool. So that looks like a pretty neat spaceship, especially when we're going to see it from kind of like this distance away. All right. And let me just go through the hypershade and grab those materials. And adjust their reflectivity, because I didn't touch any of those reflectivities. NURBS Ship here. Let's take the reflectivity down to maybe 0.5. Glossiness to 0.2. Let's say 0.8. Let's make it a little bit glossier. Our NURBS Ship, we'll take the glossy reflectivity down to 0.125. And thrusters. Now on the thrusters, I'm going to add some anisotropy just to stretch out that thing. Okay. So that looks cool. Oops. I don't want to close it yet. I'm going to grab the NURB ship and graph it out. I'm going to go down to the bump and middle drag the file 6 on the standard bump. Take it down to about 0.2. That's good. I can always go to the NURBS thrusters. Here they are. And on their standard bump, I can always graph, there's a grid in here. I can graph a grid. Just to give it a little bit of, distortion to it. And again, come into the grid parameters. I'm just adjusting their U width and V width, just like we did the cloth. And I can adjust their number of repeats. Okay, and I can turn the lights on. This is the cool thing about lighting our stuff up correctly. Oops, that's junk. Lights, there we go. Because I can turn the lights on. Let me save this. And then I can render out just the ship. Okay, if I rendered everything, it would take a little bit longer. So I can see, okay, well, maybe my glass needs some work. It doesn't really look very glass-like. This texture seems to kind of work. It just gives us some coloring to it. That texture seems to work. I just don't like the glass. So I'm just going to come into here and just adjust my coloring. And I think I also need to go back and adjust my reflectivity. You see my glossy samples are at 0. That's why I'm getting this really blocky texture here. If I take this up to 8, it'll smooth that out. I'm going to smooth it out a little bit. If I take it up to 16, it'll smooth it out more. I'm also going to add some anisotropy in this. Right, let's go back to our glossiness and take the glossiness down some. That'll help stretch the anisotropy out. Take the reflectivity up to 0.8. Now once we get a scene in here, because this is basically reflecting, we'll get more of a detail in here. So I think for now we're kind of good. Alright, so now I want to do one more thing, which is, if this thing is flying through space, there'd be some sort of jet stream kind of flying out of here. So I'm going to go under End Dynamics, and under End Particles, Create End Particles, I'm going to make sure this is set to Clouds. And then under Create End Particles, I'm going to go Create Emitter. Okay, and what this gives me is a box. Okay, and the settings are pretty simple, so that's why we're going into it. This box is a volume emitter. Okay, and if it's not there, I can come over here to emitter type and change this to a volume emitter. And if I come down here to volume shape, I'm going to change this to a cylinder. Okay. And I'm also going to change, you see there's some arrows here. I want the arrows to point straight up and down, or straight up. So on this away from center and away from axis, I'm going to turn that off and turn away along axis up to, let's say, 5. Okay. So what that should do, is start pointing straight up. Okay, it's not displaying that. Let me go to renderer and change it to default. There it goes. For some reason, the viewport 2.0 doesn't display the arrow. Okay, so there it is. Alright, so now I'm going to just rotate this and scale it. And I'm going to put it in the thruster. It's basically going to be like a little disc like this, okay, like that. All right, now if I hit play, I rewound this and hit play, what we're going to see is that smoke is coming out of here now. Woo! Lots of fun. Rewind it, hit play again, there it is. Okay. Now this is attached to our nucleus that we set up. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go to End Solvers, Assign Solver. Okay, it did go to nucleus 1. All right, just making sure. Never mind. And we can make sure of that just by going down to the bottom of this, oops, the attribute editor for this, and seeing that it is attached to nucleus 1, which is what we want. Okay, so let's rename this to be thruster particle nucleus. Okay, so now these guys here, if I hit play, you can see they're just going to keep going on forever and ever. We don't want that. So I'm going to go to the end particle shape, and this is 4 billion different menus inside here. But you can do a lot of stuff. We're not going to do a lot of stuff. We're going to do a little bit of stuff. I'm going to go to lifespan, which is how long these particles are living. Okay, and this is in seconds. So I'm going to go to live forever and change it to a random range. The lifespan I'm going to set to, let's say, 1.5. So it'll be 1.5 seconds. So if I rewind this, and I hit play, you can see they're living for about 1.5 seconds, which is about 36 frames. Okay, so if I change my randomness of this to 0.5, what's going to happen now is that I'll get some that are just going to live a little bit longer and some that are going to live a little bit less. So it's just not as perfect. That's what we want. Under particle size, it gives me a basic starting point, 0.2. Change it to 0.1, the smaller. Change it to 0.05, they're smaller. Change it to 5, they're huge. Okay, I think you get the idea. So you want to find a good size that's going to fit nicely in your thruster to make it look like it's part of it. I just happen to be a Maya Guru master, and my size is perfect at 0.2. That's also a joke. That was an accident. But it's a good one. Okay. There's also, if we look at this radius scale, there's a randomness here, right here, radius scale randomness. I'm going to crank that up. And by cranking that up some, I need to come down into my radius up here and put that down some. Maybe 0.15. There we go. Okay. And we just don't want these all to be the exact same size. We want to have some randomness kind of mixed in here. Okay. So that's good. We could also have these just for fun. Right now they're all basically staying the same size. I want them to taper off. I want them to be starting this size and then get smaller and smaller and smaller until they die. Okay, that's what this is for. If I click inside here and drag down on the right side, you can see how I can affect the scale of these things. Okay, let me rewind it and play it again. So now they're kind of coming out and they're dying off and they're getting super small. So I can come up to my lifespan and maybe make this 2 and hit play. And now they're going to live a little bit longer. Okay, maybe I'll change it to 3. So they're going to live a little bit longer and their scale is going to be shrunk down a little bit more. Let me pull this guy up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so that looks pretty neat. Let's go to dynamic properties here. It's affecting forces in world. It's ignoring the wind. Okay, so there's no wind on here, so it can ignore that. That's fine. There's some dynamic stuff in here we don't have to worry about. There's some scaling. The next one we want to go down to is shading. Not shading. Sorry, it is shading. This is going to go down far enough. Here under color, this is where we're choosing the color. And if you look at this, you can see that we're white and then it goes into blue. Okay, so we're starting off here in white and then we're going to blue. Okay, so if I click on the blue circle, click on the blue color here, I can pick that this thing is going to be, let's say, red. I'm sorry, no, that's the end of it. That one wants to be like a white-gray color. And then this side, where we're coming out of the thruster, that side wants to be like red, fiery kind of thing coming out of there. Okay, now I can click more inside here and add more. So I can just scoot this over, click in the graph, and add like a yellow. There we go. So now you see it looks like we have yellow and red coming out of there. And I can pull this gray up further. So it looks like we have this like fire starting here and then it just kind of comes out. Alright, I'm going to go and grab the scale of this again and pull this down some. Okay, I'm pulling this down all the way. I really want these things to be older, or bigger, longer. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to take the lifespan to 10. It's still not coming out very far. There we go. I'm going to have to set that to normalized age. Yes, I do. Okay. So, I don't know why I have to do that in this one. Set this radius scale to normalized age, and that will shrink these down a little bit more appropriately. Okay, there we go. And go to shading again. And we have opacity. Where's opacity? Right here. Same thing. We can click and drag this down. That way they're more opaque at the beginning and less opaque at the end. You see how they're just kind of trailing off there. And just like before, we have this randomizer. We can add some randomization to that. Okay. And we also have incandescence, where same thing. At the beginning of this, we can have this glow a little bit. So I'll add a little bit of glow at the beginning, and then no glow after that. So I don't want the smoke to glow, just the fire should glow. Okay, so now just so you can see what that's going to look like, let me save and render. And it looks like absolutely nothing. I don't have any lights in my scene because I turned them off, so let me turn my lights back on. And there's our smoke. Here's our particles. And we don't really see a glow on there. Which wouldn't really glow until I go down to the glow attributes. This. Oh, input again. Put it to age. This one to age. Normalized age. There we go. Then we can adjust our coloring here. Before in Maya, it was just age. That was the one that would work. Okay, so we get that. Pull my incandescence up more. There we go. So it looks like something is happening there. And that's all. That's all we really need. I don't need anything super fancy with this specific one. Okay. All right, so that's good. Now I would like to have a little bit more particles coming out of this, so I'm going to go to my emitter up here. And this is going to be thruster emitter. And I'm going to take my rate right here, rate particles per second, and maybe put it up to 350. So now when I rewind this and play it, I'm getting more particles shooting out of here. Okay, so that's perfect. So now let me rewind it. I'm going to go to the outliner. And in here, again, we have our thruster emitter, and we have these particles in the nucleus. The emitter I need to put with the ship. So I'm just going to middle drag the emitter and with the ship. These particles and thruster nucleus, I'm just going to middle drag into dynamic junk. Okay, just to kind of put them in their own group. I'm also going to delete this left camera. I don't like it there. Okay, so now I hit play again, just to make sure everything's still working, which it is. Cool. Now, this would make the spaceship fly in a circle. I don't want it to fly in a circle. So I'm going to take this emitter and duplicate it, scoot it over here, and when I hit play, nothing will happen. Okay? Just because I duplicated this emitter doesn't mean that these things are going to go with it. So I have to tell Maya that these particles that I have, I want to follow, or I want to shoot out of here. So I'm going to go to Window, Relationship Editors, Dynamic Relationships. I'm going to go to, grab these particles. I'm going to go to Emitters up here on top and tell it that I want to come out of that one. I don't have to do anything fancy. All I have to do is click. Now it's on. So I rewind, I hit play, and you can see it's coming out of both of them. If I turn one of these off, it'll only come out of that one. Turn both off, neither. Turn them both on, there they are. Okay? So that's it. That's all I have to do. Okay, so now I have these two thrusters shooting this thing. Alright, so now I have to animate this thing going across our scene. So I turn our stuff back on. There it is. I'm going to go grab our spaceship. I'm going to move it. Make sure nothing bad happens. If it does, again, we undo, we delete history, and then we move it. Okay. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to my front view here. And I can see there's my alien facing me. That's what I want. I'm going to go in with my Create CV Curve tool, and I'm just going to draw the path I want that spaceship to take. Something like that. Okay? But not so close to the alien. So he'll be in the background. I also want to make sure that my satellite dish doesn't hit it, and it's not. Okay? So what I'm going to do is go to the outliner. I have my curve picked. I'm going to control click my ship and say, actually opposite order, ship first, control click your curve. Go to animate, motion paths, attach to motion path. And I'm going to say start and end, frame 1 to 120. It's going to go to follow, and X and Y, I'll just leave those as defaults. Hit attach. Okay. Mine, again, comes out perfect. He's facing the correct way. I'm going to hit Control A and go to the motion path. And if I don't have follow on, I can't turn on after the fact, or turn it off after the fact, and get him to rotate back to where he was. But that's what he would do without follow on, is he wouldn't follow the path. With follow on, he's going to point down the path. Sometimes you have to play with these directions because sometimes he just comes in kind of wonky. So you have to figure out, okay, which way is his front facing? And in my case, it was facing in the X direction, which is the default. The up axis is typically going to be Y unless you did something crazy. Okay? So now if we close this, I'll scoot this off to the side, and I hit play, you'll see that my spaceship is now going flying across their scene. Wonderful. Okay, so let me rewind it again. Hit play again. And there he goes. Okay? Now he's traveling pretty far, so I think I'm just going to take this and just scale it down some. And then hit play again. There we go. Now it would be nice to have a little more movement in here instead of the straight movement. So I can go to the control vertices and just adjust these points. Okay, and I'm going to try to keep them pretty evenly spaced. If they're not evenly spaced, he may like speed up in one section and slow down in another section. Okay, so now let's rewind it. Hit play. There we go. So now it's a little bit more interesting than it was before. Okay, that's all we're after. Oh my gosh, it's almost going to collide. Let's move that curve over. Rewind, hit play. Okay. Now the other thing that's going to make this kind of look a little bit cooler, I'm going to hit Control A. I'm going to turn banking on. And we just have to be careful. Sometimes it's going to work perfect, sometimes it ain't. If it doesn't work, then just ignore it. Okay. But I hit play, and what's going to happen is he's going to bank into his curves. I can take that up by taking the scale to 10. Okay, so now he's going to basically like pivot and rotate. So you can see how he kind of rotated a little bit more there, giving him just a little bit more finesse in space. There we go. Okay, now we can see here too on him that he's picking up speed, flying, and then he's slowing down here. Okay, I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to come to my U value. I'm going to right click and click this top one. And what this does, it lists our keys. Okay, at frame 1, this thing is at 0, which is back here. At frame 120, it's at 1, which is over here. Okay, so I could change this if I wanted to. I could make this 50, and that would only take him 50 frames to get to the end of the curve. Okay, this is the part I want to change. I'm going to grab all these and just type in linear. Okay, so now that's just another way to change the graph, like we did before, to make it linear. Okay, instead of it being flat, now it says flat. Make it linear, now it's linear. Okay, so now we should get a constant movement on here. And we do. Okay. Now we can adjust stuff after the fact. We realize, wow, this smoke trail is like huge. You know, that wouldn't be that big. We can go into our, it's not there. Yeah, that was there. We can go into our attribute editor for those and take their lifespan down. So take the lifespan down to 1. Taking the lifespan down will make the trails shorter. Okay, so they're shorter. I can even take it down. I'm just typing 0.25 in that lifespan range. And now they're even shorter. Okay. And I could also maybe add in some more. So I could even go to, come on, the outliner, go to my ship right here, find the emitters. I grab them both. And if I go to the channel box over here and I change my rate to, let's say, 600. Now I'll just get more particles shooting out of here. Okay, or just to make it really slow, 6,000. You can see what 6,000 is doing here. We really have just this big mass of particles. Okay, so I'm going to save my scene. I'm going to rewind it. And you can play with any of those settings again. I can play with the curve, which I'm going to rename to NURBS ship path. It's called NURBS ship 01 path. And there's our other ship. Good. Okay. So there's our NURBS ship that we have right there. He's on a path. We can adjust the path. We can adjust lots of things. Okay. So that's where we're going to stop it for now. Next time we'll do the last NURBS ship. And then we'll do our scenery in the scene. And then finish this guy up. Okay.